Beer. Nobody knows exactly how far back in history it can be traced, but we do know it has been drank and enjoyed for the best part of human history. Of course, beer has come a long way since its early roots. As humanity has progressed, beer has evolved. Traditionally brewed in small quantities in farmhouses and monarchs, the Industrial Revolution saw beer move into the factory as the skilled brewer made way for the machine. But the world of beer is changing again, and many believe for the better. The specialist brewer is making a comeback and bringing a whole host of new flavours and styles with him. Kick-started in the United States, the craft brewing industry in the UK has taken flight and is showing no sign of slowing down. So who are these craftsmen, and how have they managed to fight back against the big boys?
It became quite a passion of mine, and I found the only way to feed my obsession was to brew more beer. I used to give it away. People would give me bits and pieces for my brew kit. I had a 60-litre brewing kettle and mash tun, which I'd made myself, and I started to win homebrew prizes, homebrew competitions, and people would come to parties or barbecues at my place and they would want to drink my beer rather than buying the local beer, the shop bought beer. So I thought maybe there's something in this.
I've always loved beer, full stop. Like at school, at high school, I had like a reputation of being a bit of an old man, drinking ales instead of lagers like everyone else. But I've always just been into proper beer. So I was at university in Dundee, Abertay University, studying food and consumer science. And basically, a part of that is a 10-week work placement, and that's in the third year. So when it came round to it, I was thinking, I don't really want to do food manufacturing, food production, like the food industry I like food, I have massive passion for food, but it just wasn't really a career path for me, to be honest. And my girlfriend at the time, now fiance, she said, well, you like beer, that's kind of food related, why don't you do brewing, I was like, actually, that's a great idea.
Back in sort of 15 years ago or so when we started, there was really very little good beer up around Argyll. If you found a pint of Duker's IPA, you were sort of lucky. So when thinking about different things we could do, sort of beer seemed like a good thing to get involved with. We knew there ought to be a good market for decent beer around the area. So that was the origins of the genesis of the idea.
It was 3 years ago my wife was diagnosed with a tumour. My daughter had a hip dysplasia, so she was in a cast for 5 months. So I took 6 months off, off my job. So I took a career break and to look after them both during that time. And my respite basically came, and any sort of downtime I had, I was just reading about beer, and the passion really just accelerated then. The whole experience was a life-changing experience, and it just, it made me think about where I am in life, what's important in life.
In the capital of Scotland, there's one bar that stands out from the others. Usher's not only has a fantastic range of beers and ales, but also happens to be a brew pub. Digger, the brewer in charge of Usher's, has invited me along to film him brewing his own beer for the very first time.
Well, it's similar to home brewing really, except in obviously making beer is the kind of work you like to take home with you. You settle in on a nice day in your kitchen, you make yourself a nice beer, It's very similar to that. You just sort of get your basic targets, like what beer style you want, how bitter you want it to be, what percentage, how much of it. You get those sort of core elements nailed down, and you basically know what you're doing apart from that. It's basically just an open canvas, so you can just, I want to use this, you compare hops and what characteristics they give, whether it's like a herbal flavour, whether it's more sort of vegetal, maybe it's more citrus, and you can combine them and blend them and all add them into the brew and stuff and just get a specific character that you're after. It's basically just knowing your ingredients and how much and how little to add, which is not that difficult to do, to be honest.
So we started really just with the original brewery that's sort of here behind us, and originally it was 10 very straightforward, nicely put together 10-barrel British ale brew house. Then as we've sort of grown and developed, first we landed up sort of enlarging the original brewery, so we put in some 20-barrel fermenters and conditioning tanks into the original brewery, so we get that up to sort of 90 barrels a week production. Then about 2 years ago we added the brewery tap over here, so that gave us somewhere where previously people would arrive and we just had sort of a dusty barn with pallets of beer and a table and tasters in plastic cups. We decided no, we wanted to be able to show people really properly what fine ales was all about. At the beginning of last year we started work on the new brewery, and we got the first brews came off at the beginning of November last year. So we've now got, as well as the original 10-barrel brewery, we've now got a 40-barrel brewery in a converted sheep shed just next door to the original brewery.
The word craft is used a lot nowadays, which is fine, but it's all about bringing back that artisan, the craftsmanship to making great tasting beer. And what's happened is that we're now, instead of brewing when I started we were brewing 5 barrel batches, that's 800 litres approximately, or 29 gallon casks at a time. We're now brewing 30 barrels, which is 120 firkins worth of beer. 5,000 litres is every brew, and we're doing that every day, sometimes twice a day. So the scale has got much larger. We are now 18 people as opposed to 2 people. But that's 18 years, so we've basically taken on one person, every year as we've grown.
Whilst companies such as Inveralmond and Fine Ales have been established for some time, many brewers are just getting started in the industry. Hundreds of new breweries are starting up every year, so it can be very difficult to stand out from the crowd. That's why one new brewer, Paul Gibson, decided that he would have to come up with a plan to make sure he was bringing something different to the table.
I wanted to do something which was completely different, so being passionate about camper vans, liking the great outdoors, having children that I was keen to sort of take away and spend more time with, I just came up with the idea of the camper van, and I thought I love the idea of getting out and about, being able to take the kids away down to the beach, and I can bring the brew kit can come with me because it's a 50-litre kit. It's fully mobile. I've got a fridge there, I've got water so I can cool the beer down. I've got a gas cooker for heating up the sparge water as well.
Beer in the UK and in Scotland was in danger of becoming a commodity, like white sliced bread in a plastic bag. We go to the supermarket and we get a tin of beer. It's not necessarily that. You never go to a restaurant and say, "I'd like a plate of food, please." You pour over the menu and think, "Shall I have a steak? Shall I have a fish with this cream sauce, or some aubergines with dill and cucumber, whatever?" And we should have the same attitude towards beer, because it's only part of life, but it's a very important part of life for me. And I want people to experience the choice, experience the flavours, and be adventurous in what they do, rather than thinking, "I'm going to have the pint that I've always had all my life." It's like, in food terms, I'm going to have fish and chips for every night of my life and never have anything else. And I think life's too short for that. We ought to broaden our horizons.
Beer festivals are a great opportunity for brewers to showcase their own beers and have a great time in the process. Fine Ales have the added benefit of being able to host their annual Fine Festival in the beautiful hills of Argyll.
So that's six years ago was our first one, and we had just about 300 people in a marquee here in the brewery courtyard. And you say, I mean, for us, I mean, the essence of the festival, you know, it's all about. Firstly, it's about here, and it's about the place, and it's about the team. We're lucky; we've got a fantastic team of people here, and so it's kind of fun for us to get together and sort of show everyone a little bit of what we're all about. But so it's about a combination of sort of brilliant beers. But we think, you know, you've got beer, you've got food, you've got music, then all you need to add in is a whole bunch of friends, and you've kind of got a really good party made up. So we do it down in the fields. We try and put together the best range of beers you can possibly put together out of both the UK and increasingly sort of internationally as well. So it's mostly it's beers from other breweries that we really admire, that we think do really good stuff. And so I think we put on about 170 different beers through the course of the weekend.
I think a big part of it is people are enjoying having a local brewery, and you know, they like the idea that the brewer is, you know, putting passion into it, and they're using their hands, and you know, it's not a mechanical process or a soulless process. You know, there's a lot of thought goes into it, and I think it's a society thing. You know, I think people really appreciate that. You know, people want to, and they want to encourage young business. It's possibly a bit of a rebellious thing in people where they don't want to. They don't want to support the mass-produced stuff. They'd rather see the guy on the street who's, you know, trying to make a living, but you know, has a smile on his face.
The craft beer scene is moving beyond bars and pubs now. In the heart of Leith, in Edinburgh, a familiar face from British television has opened up Scotland's very first curry and craft beer house. So why has he been so taken by this microbrewing wave?
See, these craft beer producers, these women and men are not sitting there counting their money. They're really not. They're sitting there working out how to make the next payment because they love making beer. You know, and beer making has been something that's been going on for millennia. Big companies got involved in the last couple of 100 years. So you want to talk to me about history? I'd rather back the traditional maker and supplier than the big companies. It always struck me as being curious that the notion of going for a beer and a curry on a Friday night, Saturday night was kind of in the DNA of folk across Scotland particularly, but across the UK generally. But you never really went to the same place for both. So surely if you want a beer and you want a curry, why don't you come to one place and make sure there's really good beer and really good curry, and that way you can come for either or both. So that was the idea, because I'd worked in Indian restaurants since the age of 15 and had been really unimpressed with the lager being sold. And then if you look at things like Cobra, which is, you know, regarded as being the most popular brand to have with Indian food, well, they've spent millions degassing their beer so it goes with Indian food. Well, here's a clue. If you've got to spend millions of pounds to get your product right to go with curry, maybe it's not the right product to begin with.
I think people are much more into sort of authenticity, things that are actually are genuinely what they say they are. And I think craft beer is about that authenticity. And therefore, rather than some faceless conglomerate producing vast quantities of relatively low-flavoured beers, I think people are into things which are being actually crafted with a bit of passion by the people that are involved in making them, people who really care about what they're doing and really want to do the best job they possibly can. And I think that's where craft beer is just sort of fundamentally different to the big beer business. We will always put flavour and integrity of what we do first and foremost, and every other consideration second.
I know how excited I get when we get a beer in that I love. I get really excited, and I literally, even if I'm not scheduled to come into work, I'll come in to try the beer. Now, if that's me, and I own the business, imagine how it is for folk that don't, you know. So we've had people coming from Glasgow. We had a guy came up from the southwest of England to come and drink our beer. It's mental, but I love it.
It's an incredibly friendly industry. The brewing industry is just, it's so friendly, because everyone, you wouldn't be in it if you weren't into beer. So if you find a beer that you like, you know, you try it, you know, get inspiration from it. And you get influence from loads of other breweries. Like you taste a beer that's got a new hop in it or got something, just a blend of hops you never experienced before, thinking if that works, great, let's try that out. Or you can mix and match, you know, add a bit, take away a bit of hop or malt or whatever. But it's, yeah, influence from other breweries is definitely part of it.
What I find really interesting is that we are very closely linked to Drygate and Williams Brothers, so a lot of our beer comes from them. But they are really happy to let potentially perceived as rival brewers like Cloudwater, Pilot, New Wave take over the taps here. Now, I don't know many other businesses that would allow competitors to come and play in their space. But it isn't, there's enough room for all of us, and I like that kind of that sisterhood, that brotherhood that exists in this world, you know, where everyone looks after everyone else.
The beer industry is one of the few where the small companies are finding a place in the market in beside the huge national and transnational companies, and are actually thriving. It goes to show that there is still a demand out there for quality products that have been created with a watchful and careful eye. Perhaps it is a rebellion against mass production and global brands. Perhaps it is a chance for people to reconnect within a community, bonded by a shared passion for good quality beer. Perhaps it's just because it tastes good. Whatever the reason, the craft beer industry is flourishing, and the brewers are having the time of their life, doing a job they truly enjoy.
People are willing to pay more money for a better product. Okay, they'll be having slightly less of it, but it's definitely, people are much more interested in the quality. People aren't going out anymore thinking, oh, where can I get the cheapest pint? They're going out thinking, where can I get the best pint?
There's no one demographic that you could say that's who craft beer is for. Craft beer is for anybody who wants to drink something interesting, something that's actually worth drinking, that's worth paying some attention to, and enjoys good flavours.
It was never going to be a road to riches. It was you know, yes, you could make an okay living, but the big plus was that, you know, you could probably do that with a smile on your face, and you could wake up Monday morning going, or not have the Sunday night with the dread of going to work. You would there was a potential of actually having, you know, walking in and being quite happy to be doing what you're doing.
I mean, it's the perfect social drink. It's not the drink itself, although that's very, very important, but what makes beer work is people. We can brew all the beer in the world, it can sit in the pubs or in the warehouses, but if people aren't drinking it, it's a pointless exercise. And when people have a beer, they tend to talk, and beer is a lovely drink to drink with companions and comrades, friends, new friends to be made, old friends you haven't seen for a long time, but it's that lovely social lubricant, and it makes things happen.